Hello, hello. Hi, all. Well, it is June. Oh, I am so excited. First off, happy Friday. We made it. And hopefully, it is sun shining and great weather in your neck of the woods. It absolutely is here. You can see a little bit of a sunshine come through on my window here. So I am super excited. Now, one thing that apparently has come with the great weather and all of that is an extra amount of pollen, I guess, in the air. I don't know. Something is happening out there, and my allergies just. And I lost my voice earlier this week. So apologies that I'm raspy, but I'm going to push through. Probably won't get a chance to talk as much because I'm actively losing my voice as we speak. But with that, I am so excited to kick off what we are doing is celebrating diversity throughout the month of June. Because why? Monday, June 19th is Juneteenth. It is an official US holiday. Please take off, please celebrate, do all of the backyard barbecues and boat rides and everything else you can. But mostly the one thing that I asked you to do throughout all that is support your local Black businesses and Black artists. So buy from authors, painters, sculptors, anything you can think of. That is your day. One support or sponsor one local Black artist, each one that week for Juneteenth. That will be your call to action, right? So let me know how that goes. So with that, we're talking about diversity. And this time last year, if you all were with me, you know that I spoke and talked a lot about Juneteenth and what it meant for those of us in the US. So for those of you that are new to me, welcome to Angel Speaking Filter Free Friday. My name is Angel G. Henry, and I am a inclusive manager strategist. What that means is I teach people how to be human. Those at work, those that are people managers at work, struggle because we have historically said, keep that diversity stuff, keep your personal stuff, keep any mental health issues, any family issues, anything that doesn't have to do with the core making of money, keep that at the door. And we all know that that's not true, right? Especially when we talk about we want an inclusive workplace and be your authentic self and be who you are and bring all of your glorious attributes and skills to the table. That includes a whole person is coming with them. So that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we have to be prepared with how to support them. And most managers, as I know, are not. So we get to come alongside and help them. Help you. So if you're HR and DE&I out there in the audience looking for some unique tips to quickly get your middle management layer up to speed, and so we can kind of turn this thing around when it comes to managing multi-generational people in the workplace, the gender divide, hybrid, all of that. We are here to help. I'm also known as the ceiling breaker because I wrote the book Dents in the Ceiling, Tools Women and Allies Need to Break Through, which is all around helping women, particularly women of color, navigate their non-inclusive workspaces, right? So there are plenty of organizations that are not yet on the inclusion journey and have not yet matured, but we still have workers there, we still have people there, and they still have to figure out how to navigate that. So I offer up very specific, practical, and actionable tips on how to deal with that, right? Okay, so for this year, for Juneteenth, for this segment, instead of solely focusing on the U.S., I got curious and thought, you know what? When we talk diversity, let's talk diversity. Let's look at how women are faring outside of the country. And of course, we're going to kick off with starting to our neighbors to the north, our Canadians. And I started to do research on Black women in Canada specifically, because I was curious if their experiences at work are similar, dissimilar. What are some of the nuances that country is experiencing when it comes to supporting or not supporting their Black female population at work? And oh my goodness, article after article, newsread after newsread, all the same themes that I wrote about in the book, that I interviewed women here in the US about, were coming up. I wrote down just a few: pet to threat, microaggressions galore, but a little bit nuanced. We'll talk about that in a second. Definitely personal bias came out, as women were seeking to get feedback or advance in their career, or even just to get a job, even in just the hiring process. Lots of personal bias was shown in terms of the questions that were being asked. A lot of Black folks. This article is just around brown and Black folks, those that are native to Canada, experienced a heightened level of challenges to their authority, more so than their peers. So it just kind of broke down, that if you are sitting in a seat where you have a manager position or some sort of title, it really, you were still challenged, right, in your decision making, which is really hard when you have a lot of variables and you're trying to make the decision that's best for your team, best for the organization or the department, and then you're constantly being challenged. And there's this extra tax where you better make sure you know you're right. So you're doing a lot of dotting I's, crossing T's, a lot of extra work, because you are preparing yourself, you're bracing yourself for the challenges, and they could just come more frequently than their white counterparts. Then it talked about the difference in expectations, in terms of higher amounts of criticism or feedback from their supervisors than their counterparts. So come dreaded performance management time, they were experiencing way more constructive feedback than positive, right? And I was thinking to myself, like, oh my God, it's like, I feel like I'm reading my own book, right? Like these are all the exact same themes, that we've seen and that I've talked about here on this channel over and over again. And I thought it was interesting, though, when we look at the makeup, of Canada, it's saying that, when you look at the student population, so think of, before we even get into the workplace, when they look at the students, and I think Toronto did this particular study, they said that there's about 20% Black students compared to 11% white, that were experiencing neglect, poor health outcomes. When they were in school, they most likely were the ones that were on reduced lunch or needing some sort of assistance in school. And there was a great deal more severe punishment, so much more, expulsions or suspensions or detentions, for bad behavior in school. Again, they were experiencing that as students compared to their white counterparts. And that theme of subtle differences, the microaggressions, the personal bias that started in school is basically what what I put into it. And it's now carried itself into the workplace. And that's how it shows up in the work world. Now, real quick, here's the little nuance, when it comes to Black women in Canada. The Black population there, it says there that the census that was taken, that I'm pulling from 2016 data, I'm sure there's something that's more recent, but about 56% of those that are from the African diaspora that check the box on the census as being Black or African heritage, 56%, that's a little more than half, are not native born to Canada. So that is unique, a bit unique that country has than what we do. And Canada has a very young population when it comes to their Black population. Their average age for, again, this is census data, those that check the box, the average age was 30, compared to about 41 for their Canadian population. So there's a whole decade difference there in terms of the average age of Canadians. And I did a little more digging because, sorry, y'all, I'm information science. So this data and stats got me a little excited to say, oh, I wonder how that is. Found some stats that says that there were about 180,000 folks that came in from Canada, from mostly Northern Africa, and the islands. So, Jamaica, Caribbeans, the islands. 180,000 came in between 2001 and 2010. And I'm like, oh my word, that's just 20 something years ago or less. And I'm thinking to myself, wow. So now I'm thinking, well, so those individuals, I mean, if I'm immigrating to a country and I'm only 20 years in, I'm thinking to myself, my ties, my origin, my identity is probably still very much rooted in my country of origin, right? Back to where I came from um, in Africa and maybe the island. And wouldn't you know it? Sure enough, this is how cool things work. I had a conversation with a young lady named Jasmine literally just yesterday. It was total coincidence. She was a native of Nigeria and had worked in the UK, Ireland, and was headed to another country to work as an intern. And so she's like fitting this population. She hadn't gotten to Canada yet, but she's fitting this population. And one of the things that I asked her is, as you're in the workspace, she has internships that are about 6 to 9 months long. And and she's, often the only one. So I'm like, how do you navigate that? And her resiliency factors are very much tied to her native country, right? Her home in terms of Nigeria. And that's where she pulls her strength from. That's where she gets her coping mechanisms from. That's where she learns to navigate the system. And I think that for me personally, and for the women that I interviewed, I think that's different here in the US. We don't have that as much. We are pulling obviously from the African American community. So the church, right? We're very, a lot of us are religious, and go to church and pray and look for support there. But when we talk about having an identity around culture, around a very strongly rooted tribal based um, grounding to help you navigate life's difficulties and circumstances and challenges, that's something that we typically, as African American women, don't have here. Again, African American here in America, versus Black women who are living in Canada, that are just literally brand new, 10, 20 years again, I'm just going off data, or maybe just one or so generation in, they still very much have that tie to their roots back home, and back home meaning Africa or the islands or the other country where they've come from, and so that nuance I think helps them with their resiliency factors and the coping. So I'm just, it was so interesting. The take home message for those of you that are listening, are the similarities are astounding. Again, right? Again, I'll recap: pet to threat, microaggressions, personal bias, being treated differently in the workplace when it comes to feedback and performance reviews, and having your authority challenged. All of those themes are pretty, I mean, identical, if you will, between, again, myself and the women that I interviewed here in the US versus the reports from Black women in Canada. And so, is this a North America thing? I wonder. We're going to find out, because we're going to find out next week, because next week we're going to take a trip across the pond to the UK. So more to come there with finding out about some trends, some similarities, some differences here. And again, this is all part of Diversity Month for the month of June for Angel Speaking. And so I'm going to be presenting this. And in August, then we're going to follow up with what are we doing about it from an HR and a DE&I perspective globally? Because I think there are some things that we can learn. Lessons learned are positive and constructive, right? Things to do and things not to do from our HR and DE&I colleagues that are around the world, right? Not just here in the US. We love to think we're so unique and special, but we can absolutely do some lessons learned. Why? Because that's part of the agile mindset framework is taking stock on lessons learned about what you're doing, what you're working and what you're not working, and course correcting. Okay, so we're going to do that collectively, globally here, and come along with me. So reach out to info@AngelsSpeaking. If you have a last minute, I absolutely have coaches that can help accommodate any last minute requests around Juneteenth. It is literally right around the corner. So info@angelspeaking.com. And I'm going to go ahead and get off now because I'm losing my voice. All right. With that, y'all, happy Friday. Have a wonderful, blessed, and safe weekend. Enjoy and mark your calendars for right here, 12:30 next week. We're going to talk about Black women in the UK. All right. Take care. Bye now.